Okay. Hello, everybody. Hello. Ooh, it's very bright. Yeah, Kate's done the intro. I'm the Growth Innovation Director at Hallam. Oh yeah, hold on. So my role essentially involves keeping us as an agency and our clients up to date with emerging technology and marketing and digital, and essentially staying at the forefront of all that stuff so that we can produce the best possible results for our clients. So in the last couple of years, that's meant staying on top of things like the Web3, the metaverse, the death of third-party cookies, Google Analytics 4 transition, all the typical stuff you'd expect. And then just before Christmas, a shitload of AI updates landed on mine and everyone else's desk and left me feeling a little bit like this guy, overwhelmed, just with the pace of change around AI. It felt like personally I had to be on Twitter and LinkedIn every 10 minutes to keep on top of the latest ChatGPT use case that's going to change marketing and make us all redundant, essentially. So it's been quite testing time over the last few months for me and to keep on top of it, and it's made me feel a little bit nervous about what the future holds. But I'm hopefully, after my talk today, I'm going to bring a bit more optimism to the discussion and tone down some of the hype that we're all seeing. This image, if you hadn't already noticed, the 1,000-character keyboard, I don't know if the resolution is very good, or the really creepy shadow man standing in the doorway, is generated using Midjourney. So this is my attempt at art. It's probably quite shit compared to what an actual designer would do. But I think the fact that it has got a 1,000-character keyboard and there is a creepy man in the window that I didn't ask for encapsulates the theme of my talk, that really AI is quite impressive on the surface, but there are some limitations that need to be aware of, and the human oversight is really essential. So if the news stories are to be believed, we are all fucked. We might as well just go and have some ice creams, go home, get a little small holding, grow our own food, buy some chickens, and just leave marketing. But I am going to tell you why that's probably not going to happen, certainly in the short term. Bring a bit more positivity to the stories that you will see, and kind of downplay a lot of that hype, which I think has got a bit over the top recently, certainly from what I've seen. So to do this, I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey using this hype curve. So I'm going to talk to you about, at the outset, why some of the hype around AI is definitely overstated at the moment. Talk to you about some of the practical limitations of the technology that a lot of people I've spoken to aren't aware of. Then some of the more serious risks and concerns with this technology and the pace that it's being rolled out with zero regulation, massive safety risks, and just companies trying to make money as fast as possible, overlooking those concerns. Obviously, I'll have to touch on, how we can save time and be more efficient using generative AI, but we could have done an hour on that. That's not the topic today. And then, what does the next 3 to 5 years hold? What are our jobs going to look like in that time with the way things are going right now and those second-order effects of AI really start to take effect? So, why are so many of us now obsessed with AI? Because it's not a new topic. It's been around for decades. One reason that I think it's become, such a massive thing in the last few months is because there's this mass democratization of this technology that we're seeing today. We can now all go on ChatGPT and create a piece of content in seconds. We can log into Midjourney and feel like we're designers. And for me, it was that joy of, feeling creative. Like I'm shit on Photoshop. If you try to get me on there, I'm terrible. Even editing my own photos. But using Midjourney, I could put a text prompt in and I could be creative. And I think that's one of the reasons why, generative AI has captured the imagination of not just marketing, but every industry. Another reason is, we've moved from machine learning and AI being this kind of background process that powers everything that we see and do online. So machine learning algorithms have been in play to, personalize results on social media, to keep you clicking on ads, essentially, to keep you scrolling on Netflix and give you personalized results. We've not really noticed it so much because it's been going on in the background. We're now moving into this era where it's very visible. You're able to create things using generative AI and machine learning technology. So it's a massive shift. So to start with, I'm going to give you some examples of why perhaps, although it's cool, some of the hype is perhaps over the top, okay? So we're going to take you from this peak of Mount Stupid to start the talk. So I think that although, we're feeling overwhelmed, I think we're also feeling overwhelmed because we're drowning in misinformation around AI with a a massive lack of knowledge around what the technology actually is, how it works, and how it can, what the limitations are. Some examples are really small, so you probably can't see it on the screen, but these are the kind of things that you'll see on a daily basis. I think this is from Twitter or LinkedIn, but it just kills me when I see this stuff. So don't use ChatGPT. That's so 2022 at the top. I personally feel like I'm only just getting under the surface with that, so I'm already falling behind. 300 million people to lose their jobs in the next 10 years. Use some tools. Build your business using AI tools. If it was that easy, we probably wouldn't be here. We'd just be sat on the beach. And the other one, the horrible one, 15 AI tools that will replace your team with 3,000 likes. So people just want to, be fired and have no job. There are 3,000 people liking that guy's tweet, which is a sorry state for humanity, I think. I think Julio used this frog example earlier, but I quite like the weird eagle-faced person on the left there with the dumbbell for a mouth. If this is the kind of stuff that people think is going to replace designers, it's like me trying to be a designer. It'd be terrible. So if you want to use that stuff, then great. But it still needs a professional, specialist skill set in design for it to be passable as a usable logo. It's definitely a time saver, but it's not going to kill designers now. This isn't a dig at LinkedIn, by the way, because I know LinkedIn have done a talk. It's social media in general and the type of stuff that you would typically encounter on social media. In my opinion, there's already quite a lot of self-promotional, thoughtless rubbish on most social networks. And LinkedIn last week have launched a tool that essentially, like ChatGPT, will let you input 20 words as a prompt, and it will generate a post for you in LinkedIn, which is terrifying. It will also let you comment using generative AI as well. So you don't even have to think about the comment, you just put a prompt in and it will do it for you. So can you imagine in a few months' time the amount of thoughtless rubbish that's going to be on your feed that no one has even posted? There's going to be very limited human perspective behind that. And for me, that's going to make social media and the content across the wider internet even more rubbish than it is today. This example is, again, one more terrible example, Photoshop's generative AI feature. So this is a person that's put in the prompt, add sexy beard, and this is what the generative AI has come up with there. So again, I'm sure that could pass and be published wherever it was originally intended. So again, the need for a designer is still there, where we are today. And I really like this quote. I think around AI augmenting the work we do, not replacing the work we do as humans. So just as Photoshop has not replaced artists, Excel has not replaced mathematicians, AI tools will not replace people. It will definitely take away some of the mundane, crappy tasks that you probably don't want to be doing, but it will augment and improve the work you do and allow you to focus on the bigger picture. So, talked about the hype, talked about some of the shit examples. Now, some of the technical limitations behind the tools. So firstly, you'll often see ChatGPT mentioned when, an AI mentioned when people actually just mean ChatGPT. ChatGPT and AI shouldn't be used interchangeably. AI is a much bigger, broader field than just ChatGPT and large language models. So I asked ChatGPT, and it agrees. Are ChatGPT and AI the same thing? No. AI is a broad field that encompasses many different technologies and approaches to building intelligent machines. ChatGPT is just one of those examples. So it might be useful when you think about AI to think about its 6 major applications. They are task automation, content generation, and insight extraction, which are probably the top 3 you would see used in marketing at the moment. There's also things like decision making, human augmentation, and human representation, so things like deep fakes, which are arguably probably the most dangerous use case that you would see right now that probably should be regulated for. The top 2 I've pulled out are probably what we're getting most excited about. So, a lot of the stuff you would see posted on social media when you talk about AI in recent months is going to be those top 2 use cases. So doing things more quickly, being more efficient and saving money in your operations, and generating content more quickly than you would have previously been able to with a lot less cost involved. 99.9% of the time, when a lot of us are talking about AI, we're really talking about machine learning. So machine learning is a subset of AI that encompasses deep learning, and within deep learning, you've got generative AI as a subset and large language models. Just to build on that, generative AI, as I've said, is a form of machine learning. It uses data, vast amounts of data, to generate something entirely new based on prompts. It's some of the impressive stuff we've seen. It's all based on data, which I'll get onto in a moment. And ChatGPT is a large language model, which is another type of generative AI that can generate text in the form of natural-sounding language. So it's a great next word predictor. So it might be worth, when you're thinking about machine learning, to think of it in this analogy. So machine learning as the car and data as the fuel. If you've got no fuel, the machine isn't going to work very well. ChatGPT is so impressive because it's fueled on basically the entire internet's data. Not in real time, but it has had that amount of data pushed into the system, and that's how the machine has been trained. So that is why we're so impressed by the capability right now. One thing that I wasn't aware of that probably many of you aren't as well is there's a massive human input required to keep this stuff accurate. So there's a process called labeling of the data to train these algorithms and to prove the accuracy. And I found an article on The Verge called Inside the AI Factory, where companies such as OpenAI are actually paying and setting up companies with completely different names that they'd rather keep secret in countries like Kenya, and paying people a really low wage to tag pictures and to improve the accuracy of their results. So this is how people like OpenAI are actually developing their algorithm. They're outsourcing this work into other countries through a process of labeling. And one other thing that actually contributes to this is if you click on a captcha on Google, when it's like click on which one of these is a traffic light, for example, that stuff is also used as labeling to improve the accuracy of the results, which I wasn't aware of before. Barry touched on this earlier on, if anyone saw Barry's talk around the future of SEO. There are some practical limitations just purely on ChatGPT and large language models, which are obviously a very much used use case right now. Great at content summarization, obviously, as I'm sure you've used it. Great at generating like code snippets, sentiment analysis, quick information retrieval. The one thing to point out is that those responses are often inaccurate. So I myself have asked it to try and save me time and write me a fancy blog so I can just put my feet up. I'll check it, it's terrible. Like, it reads well the first time, then you ask it for the links. Okay, where did you find that information? Can you send me the link to that and give me the URL? Those URLs, you click on them, they don't exist, they never existed. So it's hallucinating and making things up, which I would not encourage you to do if you're going to publish it on a website. Reasoning, logic, humor, I think maths and counting. Carmen's going to do a talk later on to show some of the bad examples of where ChatGPT is used. You shouldn't use it for maths, basically. There's other systems for that, like a calculator. So this guy from Google, who's kind of a search liaison analyst, again, just to highlight that point, large language models will hallucinate, pressed in the right way. They'll give information that's completely detached from reality. So they can give some factual information, but they will be prone to error, and I've seen that myself. So use them at your own risk. Make sure you are fact-checking and sense-checking this information, and not just blindly publishing it on your website, because you will get caught out, and it won't rank very well at all. So we've been through some of the limitations, practically. There's now some quite big risks that are also being overlooked more broadly. So the first one, privacy. Generative AI relies on a mass collection of data. So as I've said, huge amount of data needed to make it a useful algorithm. Because of that, there's obviously probably in there private data that's being fed into the system that shouldn't be in there. Okay? And there's zero regulation in place right now. The regulators are struggling to keep up with the pace of change on this technology. ChatGPT for a period of time was banned in Italy, which meant some of our colleagues couldn't actually log on to trial it, as an example. And this screenshot, if you can't see it, is taken from Google's Search Generative Experience trial. And they explicitly tell people, although I'm sure a lot of people have overlooked this, that the data that you upload will be used to train the algorithm and could surface in Google results. So if you're uploading, even by accident, some information that you probably don't want other people to see, don't do it in the Google Search Generative Experience place. Don't do it in ChatGPT. You don't know where it's going to end up and be used. Like Barry said earlier, there's this black box that you will not have access to. Another massive issue with this technology is algorithmic bias. So humans, we are biased, but generative AI algorithms are proving even worse. They're amplifying that bias to a quite extreme level. So there's a study which was done by a chap in America around a whole load of different professions, but I've pulled out here the judge example. So while 34% of US judges are women, on this example, only 3% of the images returned for the keyword judge were perceived to be women. So there's a massive issue there with how this algorithm has been trained and the data it's been trained on, and there's a need for more supervised learning, and definitely if you're going to use this tool, more of a sense check before you start publishing anything from these generative AI models. Another quite horrible risk, safety. I don't know if many of you have seen this, but Snapchat rolled out a My AI feature into their platform, again, rushing ahead to get the technology out into the public. And a reporter pretended to be a 13-year-old girl. And this AI tool obviously hadn't been trained. It hadn't got any safeguards in place. It didn't understand the age of consent. It had no safety blockers in place. And it was positively encouraging this 13-year-old to go out on a date with an older man. So there's a massive risk there. Not really funny. It's quite bad. But this shouldn't be happening. We shouldn't be rolling out this technology without those safeguards in place. Another more existential risk, maybe a lot of you have probably seen this stat, I'm not sure it will, but who knows. Over 50% of the people who are genuine experts in AI, so leaders in the field, think there's a 10% chance or greater that AI will lead to human extinction. So would you get on a plane if it had a 10% chance or greater of crashing? Absolutely not, but we're all rushing ahead to implement this technology into our systems, into our businesses, with very little thought about that. So you would think that, let's not worry about that. Regulation will catch up. We'll all be okay. We can just do what we want. People have got it covered. But they haven't, believe me. I went to a summit called the AI Summit a couple of weeks ago in London, which was ran by, I think, partly sponsored by the UK government with a few other European governments involved. And you had technologists there from Google and Microsoft, and you also had government speakers there. And the gulf in knowledge between the government and the technologists was, jaw-dropping. This is a quote from the policy director of OpenAI. Danger with AI policy is that governments are so unfathomably behind the frontier that they have no idea how to regulate, which is very true in my opinion. So they're really struggling to catch up. So at this point, we've got a really delicate balancing act between wanting to progress really quickly, be efficient, make money, do the real cool stuff that we probably wouldn't have been able to do without developers or designers in our business, but do so responsibly and understand the risks that are in place. And I think today we are definitely leaning more towards the progress and overlooking the responsibility side. So we're getting there now. We've been through some of the risks, we've been through some limitations, we've downplayed some of the hype. What's the current use case for generative AI in business and marketing today? So right now, I think it should be clear that AI will not take your job, but humans using AI probably could do. AI is going to be a great time saver. We should be using it to unburden ourselves from the crappy tasks that really a machine is better placed to do. Okay, a lot of the heavy lifting, certainly in the paid media space, this has been happening for, 10, 15 years. So at Hallam, obviously, we've got multiple services. I've seen this happen over the last 10 years in paid media, and it has completely changed the work that team has done. They've gone from manually optimizing bids on Google and deciding where the budget's spent and targeting different audiences to just basically giving it up to a black box and giving it up to Google. And what that's meant is that team has had to completely change their mindset into away from clicking buttons into focusing on creative, focusing on strategy. And that is basically going to happen across all areas of marketing in the next few years. What paid has experienced, we're experiencing all the other areas now. Obviously, there are some use cases. We've used things like Midjourney to save us time. So it's an efficiency tool. To come up with a creative concept like this would have taken our creative team hours in the past. In Midjourney, it took us just a few minutes to create 9 different variants of a concept. Stitch them together. So we stitched this. The Queen in the background was a different prompt entirely. But the key is it wasn't a one-and-done approach. It was a time saver, shaved hours and hours off the creative process, but we couldn't have launched it just as Midjourney, spewed it out, because it would have been terrible. Obviously, there's loads more examples. I could have done an hour talk on ChatGPT for paid or SEO, or whatever. Pick your subject. But there's a few ones that you want to take away. If you're working in marketing and you are in calls all day, like me, or meeting different brands or people in the business, one basic tool that you can use, fireflies.ai, is a note-taking tool. It will give you a summary of the sentiment of the call, and it will write all your notes up so you can just sit back and not do that. If you're a developer, GitHub Copilot, you can use a text-based prompt to generate a code snippet in minutes, massive time saver. Jasper.ai, slightly more advanced version of ChatGPT for copywriting. So there's loads of tools we can use. The theme is time saving and efficiency boost for businesses. So we've talked about the efficiency side. A couple more slides to wrap up. What does the next 3 to 5 years hold based on this and where things are going? So I think we've already entered, in my opinion, the era of the AI Copilot. Microsoft are changing the name of all their products to Copilot. They've got, this GitHub Copilot, which is a Microsoft product. They're adding it to all the Teams stuff as well. So it's going to amplify the work we do. It's going to shave time off processes, and it's going to help improve and accelerate the work that we do as an assistant. I think Julio touched on a similar quote earlier. I think with the rise of these tools, mediocrity is now free to everyone, okay? Anyone can churn out content in minutes on ChatGPT. It doesn't mean that content is any good. It just means we've now got access to the tools that will enable us to do that quickly. And what that means is that the brands relying on generative AI alone, so if you just use ChatGPT, or if you use Jasper or any of these tools to generate content, you will drown in a sea of sameness, because if you think back to what I talked about with how these machine learning models work, they're all based on the same training data. They've all got access to that data. So if we're all typing in very similar prompts, you're going to see very similar results, and it's going to be terrible, like the LinkedIn example I showed earlier. Only real-world people with real-world knowledge can provide these machines with new information. So we are still important. Specialist expertise in any subject area, not just in marketing, but across the world, is going to be important to bring light to certain topics and to really train the algorithms on best practice. And I think there's a really interesting juxtaposition a few weeks ago when I watched this Google Search Generative Experience rollout, where They were flashing AI in front of everyone, talking about how they were going to put it at the heart of their search algorithm, which is great. But what they also talked about was putting perspectives into the search results. So they recognized that what's going to happen is there's going to be proliferation of shitty, robotic generated content in the next few years. What's the one thing that's going to give them trusted results that people will actually want to click on? It's going to have to be authoritative, expertise-related content that's got a human perspective. So that means for brands, if you're in B2B, making sure you're getting thought leaders and experts in the product teams to actually contribute to content on the website. If you're in B2C, brand ambassadors, creators, starting to partner with people who will actually be able to surface in these results, because this is going to become, I think, the future of certain results on Google. So, final slide. Skills for the future. This is something that I've talked about, me and Jack, in paid for a good 5 years now. And this has been happening in paid, and it's just going to happen now in every area of marketing. There's going to be a divergence between technical and strategic skills. So on the technical side, things like data science, they can charge a ridiculous salary, I'm sure now. If you know data science inside out, you're going to be, doing well in the next few years. Understanding MarTech, integrations, deep specialism. So by technical, I don't just mean someone that knows data. I mean, if you have a deep understanding of SEO, a deep understanding of paid media, analytics, that's still going to be really important, as I've said, because human skill in those areas is going to be needed to be amplified by the AI. And on the other side, there are massive gaps in AI. So strategy, creative thinking, critical thinking, leadership, communication, all those things are going to be massively important. So this bit in the middle is the stuff that's been eroded by AI, the heavy lifting, the jobs that aren't really adding much value on the strategic side and aren't deeply technical. So if you want to succeed in the next 5 to 10 years, get out of that valley of death and pick a side that you enjoy and start specializing in one of those areas. So final thoughts. As I said, machine learning makes up 99.9% of what we see when we talk about AI. So don't just think AI is this massive topic. Machine learning is most of what we're talking about. Technology alone is no silver bullet. As I've shown you with the examples, some of what it spews out is terrible. So if you're going to use that, then great, but it shouldn't be used as a silver bullet. Don't just rush into operationalizing this technology without understanding the serious risks that are in place there and the limitations of some of the technology like ChatGPT. Some of it might not be factual, so just check it before you publish it. And avoid that valley of death. So make sure that you understand, that sounds quite simple, but understand that you need to specialize deeply in a subject matter, or you need to focus on the high-level strategy and the creativity side of things to avoid your job potentially being automated the next few years. I think I've gone 1 minute over, so thank you everyone for your time. Hope you have a good rest of the day, and I'll speak to anyone after.